At this time, I would like to focus on our bargaining activities over the past 4 years. This union takes great pride in the fact that we have bargained exceptionally good contracts for our members since the 1880s. We set the wage and benefit standards in every industry we have members. For close to 150 years, we have been negotiating contracts in an attempt to bring justice to the work site, move our members into the middle class, and ensure a level of dignity on the job. And we have been very successful. The contracts that we negotiate allow our members to be able to provide a good life for themselves and their families. Through wars and famines, depressions and recessions, consolidations and bankruptcies, we have soldiered on with our negotiations. Despite a pandemic and greedy employers, the tradition of excellence and dedication continued over the past 4 years because of the people in this convention hall today. It is important to start off by saying that negotiating a great contract involves a lot of different factors all coming together. In our steward and organizing training, we refer to this as union math. D plus M plus S equals P. Density, mobilization, and solidarity equals power. We only achieve good contracts for our members when we have the power. It's that simple. So how do we make sure we've got the density, mobilization, and solidarity to achieve that needed power at the bargaining table? To achieve density, we need to organize. We heard from John Price on Thursday why this is so important to this union. We would not have been successful at Kellogg's or Nabisco if we did not have all of their U.S. operations organized. They simply could not produce enough at their non-union plants in Canada or Mexico to sustain the strikes. But they will learn from this, which is why it's so important that we organize those remaining Nabisco and Kellogg plants in Canada. When we have density in a company or in an industry, it gives us tremendous leverage at the bargaining table. Mobilization of our membership is only possible when locals provide quality membership service, education, and information. Our members must know and respect the union they belong to. It is up to each and every one of us as leaders to make this happen. We must communicate with our members through social media, stewards, local officers, bulletin boards, and magazines. We must train our stewards to be strong advocates for our members. We need to make our members feel like they are part of this great union. That is how we build an army of dedicated trade unionists, and that brings us to solidarity. Solidarity occurs when our members understand they are fighting for something bigger than their own wage increase or pension. They are fighting for all their BCTGM brothers and sisters. They are fighting for all working people who deserve dignity and respect on the job. Ask any of these striking workers last year, and they will tell you they were not just fighting for individual benefits, rather they were fighting a system that has cast workers aside and has stripped dignity out of good manufacturing jobs. Solidarity is when workers from other unions come to our picket lines, and we do the same for them. Solidarity is when our locals in Canada hit the streets and use social media in support of our striking workers in the U.S. Solidarity is when we team up with the global labor movement to expose employers who move production to Mexico to take advantage of those workers and their low wages and lousy laws. When you add density, mobilization, and solidarity together, you have real union power. This is union math. Over the last 4 years, despite some of the limitations on bargaining during the pandemic, our local unions negotiated a remarkable number of new contracts. Believe it or not, our local unions are signatories to over 1,000 collective bargaining agreements. That means that each and every day we have local unions negotiating new contracts. And each and every day we have vice presidents and international staff who are assisting with those negotiations or are preparing for upcoming bargaining sessions. Let me tell you that every single set of negotiations is important to us. All of our employers are watching each other. They know that if we give up on something in one location, we will likely do the same somewhere else. That is why it is important that all local unions send their settlements and contracts to the International Union. Our international negotiators look at those settlements before going into bargaining with the same employer or within the same industry. Despite all the challenges that have occurred in the bread and cake sector over the last 4 years, the BCTGM continued to negotiate contracts its members could be proud of. Since the last convention, we negotiated pattern agreements in the Midwest and Southern regions, and we recently wrapped up negotiations in the Western region. These patterns cover tens of thousands of members at both big and small baking companies. I'd like to play a video we have of local 85 officer Jerry Gill discussing the West Coast pattern negotiations with Bimbo Bakeries USA. Please play the video.
We successfully negotiated the West Coast pattern negotiations with Bimbo Bakeries USA, and in large part was due to the collective effort of the committees and the assistance of the international representatives. The ongoing strikes definitely helped Bimbo Bakeries USA understand that we meant business. As a result of that, we ended up with the best contract in history.
Jerry, where you at? Stand up, Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. I don't know if y'all really heard what Jerry said, but when he says we got the best contract in history, I think that deserves a standing ovation. We've made a lot of history in the last few years, y'all. Things have changed. We're going to continue to change. In Canada, many of our members are employed by two primary baking companies, Canada Bread, owned by Bimbo Bakeries, and George Weston, which was recently broken up and sold. Our locals in Canada negotiated a number of new contracts with these companies over the last 4 years. We also represent bakeries who work in large retail grocery stores. Local unions across the United States negotiated new contracts with Safeway, Giant, Kroger, Fred Meyerson, Albertsons, and SuperValue. These negotiations normally go pretty smooth, but we had a few fights recently. In Minnesota, Local 22 ran an impressive campaign against Cub Foods, which wanted to get rid of the pension plan, and showed an amazing disrespect for our retail bakers who had told through the pandemic without complaint. In Colorado, Local 26 was faced with a potential strike with King Supers, a retailer in Colorado where the local represents retail bakers. I would like to play a video of Local 26 Officer Cliff Horton explaining the situation at King Supers. Play the video, please.
Starting with the King Supers negotiations during the strike, we went into negotiations and we were running into a rough negotiator. While we were out on strike, with Nabisco, I had the officers, our international officer, Vice President Shad Clark, come in to assist us. And the comment was made by our committee that they were willing to strike. And they pointed out that Nabisco's down the street on strike, they're ready to go too, and they know how to walk a strike line. I want to thank you, Nabisco workers. Your courage and bravery allowed other members of the BCTGM to have courage to do exactly what you did.
In both cases, our members were mobilized for action and the employers knew it. In both cases, we walked away with great contracts because we were prepared and mobilized. I'd like to tell a quick story about what happened on one of those stores. One of their chief negotiators called me one day up in Washington and was talking about that he didn't want to strike. He had heard about how crazy we were. And he said, I'm just trying to, negotiate, tough negotiations, and, we don't really want to strike, but we got to be tough on where we end up at. And I said, well, you got till Friday to make up your damn mind. And that's the difference in solidarity, y'all, and having your people ready. Because they knew that we were crazy enough to go, and the people were ready. And so that changed everything. The next time they went negotiations, the contract got settled, and it was a great contract. Thank you, Wally and Cliff, and everybody else that helped us in that. Our members in the grain sector worked in milling facilities, grain elevators, sugar processing plants, cereal and snack plants, and ingredient facilities. In the cereal sector, we represent workers at the two dominant players in the industry, General Mills and Kellogg's. We just heard about our fight at Kellogg's Cereal, but it's important to mention that we also represent workers at Kellogg's owned Eggo waffle plants and Kellogg's Pop-Tart plants, where we negotiate great contracts. We're also organizing Kellogg's meatless burger plant in Zanesville, Ohio. We want to organize and get under contract every remaining Kellogg's plant in the U.S. and Canada. This company has made this personal, so we will give it right back to them. I am proud to say that earlier this year we negotiated a new master agreement with General Mills. Vice President Roger Miller heads up the General Mills bargaining conference and has done a fantastic job along with the local union officers. General Mills saw what happened with Kellogg's, and they didn't want no part of that shit. So I don't think I was supposed to say that exactly that way. But y'all are finding out how I am. In the sugar industry, the BCTGM represents the vast majority of the sugar beet processors in the United States, including Michigan Sugar, Alligator Sugar, American Crystal Sugar, and Sydney Sugar. Most of these facilities are located in the Red River Valley, Idaho, and Michigan. Most people think sugar cane is their primary means of sugar, and yet it's the sugar beet that makes up close to 60% of the sugar that is consumed in North America. Did y'all know that? I didn't know that until I started working for the International. I thought that was very unusual. And we make almost every single speck of it. In the milling industry, our local unions represent workers at some of the largest agricultural companies in the world, including Archer Daniels Midland, Ardent Mills, Cargill, and Bunge. Over the last 4 years, we've continued to negotiate solid contracts with these companies. A couple have given us a hard time, but even within ADM, we've made solid gains. In both the confectionery and snack industries, all contracts are negotiated at the local union level. Within the candy industry, we negotiate with Jelly Belly, Ferrero, See's Candies, Ghirardelli, Hershey Company, and Dare Candy. It is imperative that we continue to organize within this sector. Mars is completely non-union. Haribo Gummy Bears just built a giant plant in Wisconsin, and Hershey continues to operate large non-union facilities. In the snack sector, our largest employer is Frito-Lay, of which BCTGM represents workers at 4 large manufacturing facilities. Of course, we've heard about the strike at Frito-Lay in Topeka and how that has impacted negotiations in Washington State. What's interesting is that 4 years ago, in his bargaining remarks at this convention, President Durkee talked about the conflict at Frito-Lay and said it would be an important development to watch. How right he was. We have been very successful negotiating new contracts within the tobacco sector over the last 4 years, despite the ever-changing dynamics of the industry. Bargaining within this tough environment, we were able to negotiate great contracts with Philip Morris, ITG Brands, Swisher International, and Liggett. At the last convention, we highlighted some of our organizing efforts in tobacco. We must continue those efforts if we want to maintain our position and standing within the industry. In the dairy sector, we represent workers employed at Danone, Lifeway, and others. Over the last 4 years, we negotiated new contracts at Dannon Yogurt in Ohio and Utah, as well as 2 newly organized Danone dairies in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. On Thursday, John Price talked about the Danone neutrality agreement we have been organizing under. Just as important as being able to organize those Danone dairies is the ability to negotiate first contracts with them. Within the dairy sector, we also negotiated a new contract at the Lifeway facility in Chicago. At our convention 4 years ago, we were talking about the organizing with Lifeway and the first contract they achieved there. Our presence in dairy continues to grow and is a testament to our organizing and negotiating programs. I hope that in 4 years' time, we will have added a few General Mills, Yoplait plants, and the big Chobani plant in Idaho to our BCTGM family. As you can see, despite all the challenges facing this union, we were very successful at the bargaining table over the last 4 years. We want to maintain and expand the middle class. We got to organize non-union workers and then get them a collective agreement. This is not an easy process by any means, but it's something that all of us in this hall must be committed to do. I would like to end this report with another video. This one is of Jeff Webb, GEB member and officer of Local 25. Please play the video, Jeff.
The strikes of 2021 affected us in a real way. We went into negotiations with Kellogg's in around November of 2021. And, you know, we always prepare for negotiations very well. To get a leverage somewhere, you know, that's what we're looking for is leverage. And little did we know we were going to gain a lot of leverage from these fights that went on before us. And those really had an impact on our negotiations, I believe, because, you know, the company came in and they know that the BCTGM is not just going to lay down because these members took on the fight. And, you know, if a company out there, if they think that, you know, they're going to take advantage of BCTGM members and they're just going to lay down and not fight, hey, mess around and find out, you know, because it happened. And, you know, I just wanted to thank all the people that were involved in those strikes because, you know, they made a difference in our members' lives, and we appreciate it. We went into negotiations with Riches in February of 2022, and that was about the time toward the end of the strike, I think, at John Donaire, which Rich Products owns John Donaire. So that also gave us a lot of leverage there. We came out with the best contract we've ever had there, that we've ever had in this local, I believe. And you know, it all goes back to that same thing that, you know, there were people there and it's all about solidarity, you know, and us sticking together. And I think those people taking on the fight before us, you know, that made a big difference.